Much of what I want to talk about this morning has already been covered by Deb and Laurent yesterday, so this is going to be relatively quick. The main thing I want to do is to distinguish between the natural history studies that have been done and this longitudinal functional study that we are about to launch. So natural history, as Jim just showed you, sort of gives you the big picture about a disease. It tells you what % of patients have certain problems and how that might change over time. So what it does is it gives us, it helps us to identify the areas in which we might want to see some improvements in patients. As we start to move into clinical studies, however, what we need to do is to actually quantify the performance in these different areas and then show how treatment with drug is going to alter that natural history. So that's where we're at now. And the challenge in doing that is to identify instruments that enable us to quantify things accurately and with precision. So that's what we've been trying to work on now, and I'll show you some of the results that we've gotten with that. So as Deb indicated yesterday, the real purpose of this functional study, and we will be collecting natural history data along with this, we never want to lose an opportunity to do that, but the real purpose of this is to quantify functional outcomes in untreated patients over time. And ultimately what this helps us to do is not only to pressure test some of the instruments that we're going to use and give us some experience with them, but then we actually are able to use this information statistically to help us determine the number of patients that we need to use in patients so that we can give a statistical argument to the regulatory authorities as to whether or not we're seeing a significant change. Again, the functional study is outlined here. We're going to try to get 60 patients in North America and Europe, and as you can see, that really represents a pretty substantial number of patients with MTM. And we hope to follow them for up to 2 years. Obviously, once we launch treatment studies, we're going to have to cut this short. So we need to get this done as quickly as possible, and so we hope to start the study by the end of the year. We've identified a number of different areas that we think are worth looking at. There are already pretty good measures for respiratory function and muscle mass, although muscle mass is an area that we may want to be a little more creative in. But some of the things that we really want to get a better measure of are motor function and muscle strength, spontaneous activity, and quality of life, not only for patients, but for parents and caregivers, because this is obviously a partnership in this disease. So for those of you who didn't see the tools that Laurent has proposed using in our studies, and I think these look like great tools, here they are. One is the MyoGrip, which not surprisingly measures grip strength. The other is MyoPinch, which measures pinch strength. And the important thing in these measures is not only to be able to quantify things, but also to have measures that have some face validity or obviousness in terms of their relation to their clinical relevance. And if you see a lot of the kids here getting around the room in their wheelchairs, I think you can appreciate that things like grip strength and pinch could be extremely important in giving them independence. So these tools really seem to address that. There's also the Movi plate, which measures wrist function, and what you actually do here is move your fingers between the white and black buttons there, and this is actually able to measure the number of times you do that in time. And again, these kinds of abilities will be very useful in helping patients with the technology that we have today manage to get some independence. And then finally, we're also looking at spontaneous activity, and these are the instruments that Laurent showed us yesterday. One is worn on the belt and one is worn on the wrist. These instruments actually have been used pretty extensively in Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and these curves here, straight lines really, show you some of the results that have been seen in Duchenne muscular dystrophy patients and normal volunteers. And the important sort of take-home message here is, well, let me just first describe what we've done here is patients have actually performed with these tools and then come back sometime later and done it again, so in a relatively short period of time. And what you see is that it really describes a sort of 45-degree angle. So the retest validity of these instruments is extremely good, but not only that, it's extremely good across a broad range of abilities, especially down at the bottom where I think a lot of the MTM patients are going to be, and right up to the top. So these tools appear to have the sensitivity that we need in terms of measuring function in patients with MTM, and also the ability to discriminate even at these very low levels between patients. And then over time, what you see with these instruments is that you can see the decline in patients over time, but also within individual patients, there generally seems to be an ability to measure a downhill course, and that's going to be important in our ability to measure change in patients and discriminate change in untreated patients from patients who are treated with drug if the drug is efficacious. So the question in our minds has been, can we use these instruments in patients with myotubular myopathy? And so yesterday, Laurent was able to corral a few cooperative patients and go ahead and give it a try, and I hope that I hope that this works on the screen. You may not be able to see the results here, but so first of all, in terms of grip strength in the upper left-hand corner, I don't know if you can, probably you can't see the little blue stars on, actually it's the middle one here on top, but way up here we're actually seeing the performance of a couple of the patients who tried this, and sure enough we're getting pretty good retest results. They're falling right on that line. So it's beginning to look like that's going to be useful. Same thing with pinch strength. Here are some of the patients that tried this yesterday. So again, at the pretty low bottom part of the scale, but at least we're seeing the same kinds of results that we saw with Duchenne patients. And then the Movi plate results all the way up there in the, I'm getting my right and left confused, but you know what I mean, way over there. Again, the performance is very similar to what we've seen in Duchenne. So it looks like these are going to be useful tools. Didn't have quite as much luck with the Acti-Myo, the accelerometer, in terms of measuring spontaneous activity, but we'll see if in a larger population with older and a little more function, we'll see if that's any better, but yesterday wasn't a great success. And that's all that I'm going to say for now. I think Dab and Laurent have covered that pretty well. So right now our plan is to move this forward both in North America and in Europe, and hopefully this will give us the kind of information that we all need in order to go to regulatory authorities and convince them that we know whereof we speak and that we can actually measure changes with the treatments that we propose to use.